Hello and welcome to the fourth episode? Fifth episode of the MumbleCast. I'm Liam.
And I'm Kayla.
Today we started talking, just before we started this, about how last week, if you had listened, which I'm sure all of you have, Kayla hadn't seen Space Jam.
Still haven't. Which
from my childhood is probably one of the greatest movies ever. And then we started chatting about what other movies we'd seen and haven't seen and what we're fans of. And it turns out that Kayla and I say it as though we didn't already know this about each other, but we kind of did. Massive fans of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or the MCU, as it's known for the circle. And so we thought we'd do this week about Phase 1 of the MCU. Kayla, what are the movies involved in Phase 1 of
Phase
the MCU?
1 would be Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America, The First Avenger, and Marvel's The Avengers.
Alright, so in that case we're going to get into some of these movies, say some things, what we enjoyed about them, a little bit about the movies, I'm sure. Cool. Alright.
Let's get ready to mumble!
Nailed it. Alright, first. What's the first one?
Iron Man. So Phase 1 is all about the Avengers assembling. So it was a lot of introductory stories. The first one being Tony Stark as Iron Man.
Now, was it planned from the beginning that it was going to be a big universe?
I have no idea.
I can't see you doing Marvel movies without it being planned to some degree.
Yeah.
But sure, I'm assuming it would have been depending on money. If they'd made enough money, they would have done it. If not, they would have scrapped it. But I hope they would have done it. Do you remember Iron Man coming out?
I do not. Do you?
Yeah, sort of. Well, that was it was 2008. I think that's when Iron Man came out, and it was just around the time that Batman had sort of taken off again. Because my childhood, I loved Batman was the only really Marvel movie, not Marvel, the only comic book movie that was out there. And you had the two good ones, then you had like 4 bad ones, whatever it was, 3 bad ones, and then this was like the revamped Batman was in 2 years before this, was in Batman Begins, and this was Marvel's take on the sort of bringing it all back together. And you'd had Spider-Man as well recently, so comic book movies were getting back into it, and I think this was a big one that sort of moved towards joining all the universes. I think this sort of everyone saw it coming a little bit, but no one really. I didn't know who Iron Man was that much. I knew of him, didn't know about him.
Yeah. Did you read comic books before?
So in the UK, we did. Well, you did have the Marvel and DC comic books, but not really. They were a bit. They were a bit more sort of specialised. You had to go to specialist shops to get them. You just couldn't get them on the newsstand. But so we had comic books that weren't these type of comic books.
Okay.
And I read some when I was a kid, but not like this.
Yeah.
Level. So I knew Spider-Man. Everyone knew Spider-Man. We watched that on a cartoon. I knew X-Men. Loved X-Men from the TV show. It's got the awesome theme tune.
Yes.
That one. If you don't know it from that, guys, you're not a big fan. And then that was it. And then when I was a teenager, because this came out, I was older, and I don't know, I was looking forward to it quite a lot. Stupidly amount for what age I was, anyway. But yeah, I didn't know much more about it other than that. I didn't know the storyline. I didn't really know much more than the gold and yellow suit.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. I started watching X-Men first. I didn't watch the X-Men movies until we were in college. And it was like, we got snowed in one day and I watched them all. And from there, like...
The first 3, yeah? The X-Men.
Yeah, X-Men.
Then X-Men
X2.
2, X2, and then Last Stand.
Yeah. And then from there, like, I don't think I saw Iron Man when it came out. I think from, like, that, like, sparked my...
Sparked interest a little bit.
Superhero interest. And then I was like, well, Iron Man. And then I definitely didn't see Incredible Hulk in theaters. Maybe by, like, Iron Man 2 or Thor, I was getting into it where I actually went. But it took a while.
Alright, so Iron Man was the first one. This came out in 2008, as I said. But the MCU, or the Marvels, it's really interesting stuff about the sort of rights behind it all. Because Marvel went through this big thing where they lost all they sold all the rights to the movies, or to the characters, a lot of them anyway, and that's how Sony has Spider-Man, that's how Fox has the Fantastic Four, and different people have different ones, and they're sort of tried to get them all back together now. But Iron Man was one that they had lost the rights to in the 1990s. They gave it to Universal, and it was Fox had it in 96, and then New Line Cinema had it in 99, and then in 2006 is when they acquired it back.
Oh, wow.
And then they put Iron Man and a whole bunch of almost all their characters up as sort of they needed money to start off the MCU or the Marvel Universe, and they're like, okay, we're going to put all our characters up as collateral. If we don't make any money or whatever, or we don't pay you back, you have all our characters' rights forever. And if we do, then we can hold on to them and pay you back and blah blah blah. So this was like a big risk for Marvel to kind of get this movie going, and if they didn't, they'd lost everything basically. So it was quite interesting how it started.
How well did it do? Do we know?
Yeah, it did really well. Well, worldwide it did like 585 million on a budget of 140 million, which is pretty solid work for a movie that essentially came from nowhere, not a non-sequel type movie that was just straight out of the blue essentially. In the US, that made 318 million of that 585, so it was really big here. With somewhat unknown actors, well, not unknown actors, like Robert Downey Jr. who played Tony Stark. He wasn't really known that well in the younger community anyway. No kids had known his work. He was last known for Ally McBeal or something, and then he went on his wee drug tirade.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was actually a tirade, but he did. Yeah, he was a Captian America, and he did. I remember him from Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which is a really kind of good movie. I think it was probably at the same time as Iron Man. I'm not sure.
Did he do Sherlock Holmes?
Yeah, but I think I was following Iron Man.
Okay.
But he did Sherlock Holmes. Yeah, he did 2 of them. All right. So what's the movie about?
All right,
for those who haven't seen it,
Iron Man, yes. Anyway. Spoiler alerts for sure. He's introduced the movie introduces Tony Stark as Iron Man. So basically, it starts off Stark's held hostage. They're like doing this like deal, and there's an ambush. He's held hostage. He gets hurt. There's shrapnel that goes into his chest. So then the person that's also held hostage with him, I think, had to make an electromagnet to put in his chest to keep the shrapnel from killing him. Then they build a suit and he escapes and becomes Iron Man.
That's a really quick synopsis of that past bit, yeah. Then what happens?
I don't really remember very much from this movie. Pepper Potts, she's introduced as his personal assistant. Gwyneth Paltrow plays her. Phil Coulson's the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. That's Clark Gregg. I love him. Nick Fury's the S.H.I.E.L.D. director, Samuel L. Jackson, and then introduces James Rhodey as Stark's friend. Yeah,
and that's in this movie at least that's Terrence Howard.
Yeah.
So is that what you got for the synopsis?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll fill in the rest.
I got
so essentially
the rest of the movies.
Okay, they come back from the cave. Well, essentially, he goes to the cave. He's abducted by a guy named Raza or something, and he's in charge of the Ten Rings, which are like Tony Stark's main rivals or one of the big rivals. And the leader of the Ten Rings is the Mandarin, who comes up in later movies. But they use this Raza guy to begin with, and he steals Tony, and he wants the plans for the Jericho missiles, which is the one he was selling. And then Tony fakes builds this Iron Man machine, which gets him out of there. But in that meantime, he builds himself his arc reactor, the thing that goes into his chest, and there's a small version of the arc reactor which he claims to have built as an energy ploy back in the 90s or 80s, whatever it was. And so he has a small version of that in his chest, made out of palladium, or whatever it is, that element he makes for that, or uses. And then he makes this thing, comes out, and then he goes back home. He has a realization that all his weapons are used for terrorism and not just what he thinks is defending his country. So he has this big realization that he wants to now protect everyone. That's when he starts building the MK2 and the MK3 version of the suit. MK3 is the main one you see in that movie. But then his colleague, Obadiah Stane, wants that technology in the arc reactor to start building an army of these metal men, Iron Men, I suppose you could say. And then they have a big fight about it, and Obadiah Stane starts building the Ironmonger, which is the big machine that you see at the end of the movie that Obadiah Stane's in, who's played by Jeff Bridges. And they have a big fight in the end, and that's sort of the rounding up of that one. So it's not the most expansive movie in the sense of villains and cinema and universe, but I think as a first movie it's probably a good way to start it, to keep it nice and close and tight. So if you obviously you don't remember too much about the movie, as you mentioned, you've not seen it in a while, but favourite parts of the movie, anything you can remember?
I think just like seeing the suit for the first time was pretty cool.
Yeah, the red and gold one.
Yeah. And then the post-credit scenes. Those are always my favorite.
So It's almost like what we go to the movie. Well, you sleep halfway through them, so you wake up for the post credits. Probably why it's your favourite bit. My favourite bit, I think, is probably when he's first coming out of this cave in the MK1, and he turns into flame flowers. And he's like, "My turn," and he goes. Yeah, it's quite fun. And then you had the Black Sabbath playing the Iron Man song in the background. That's pretty cool.
And I also think it's funny just him like trying. Isn't this one where he's like testing out all the different suits?
Yes. Well, you have that scene when he's in his wee sort of man cave, and he's trying out the hands and feet thing. I don't know
what they're called.
These wee blaster things. And he's sort of balancing himself. So he does that, but yeah.
He's just like trying to learn. It's just funny.
Yeah. But no, I think this was a great introduction. I think it's probably one of the best solo adventures out of the Marvel Universe yet, and it probably will stay that way. I can't see them getting better than Iron Man was. I don't know whether it's just the fact it was new and fresh in a sense.
Yeah.
You started mentioning about the characters. Gwyneth Paltrow plays Pepper Potts, who's sort of not a massive big role in this, but she's almost fundamental to the whole Tony Stark or Iron Man's journey, which is quite good. How do you think Robert Downey Jr. played Iron Man?
I love him as Iron Man.
Yeah.
I think he's very, I don't know, like cocky and just like how I imagine Tony Stark would actually be. And
although I didn't know much about Tony Stark prior to it,
no,
I think it doesn't matter because he just embodies what everyone now thinks is Tony Stark. It's so much so that it's like in the comic books he's more tailored towards how Robert Downey Jr.'s portrayed him. But apparently Jon Favreau, the director of the movie, he also plays Happy Hogan, who's sort of Tony Stark's assistant. He chose Robert Downey Jr. because he had a similar. So Iron Man in the comic books has had like alcoholism, depression, all that sort of. And he thinks that Tony's past life sort of feeds into that quite well. So apparently that's one of the reasons why Robert Downey Jr. was cast. Do you think? Okay, so there was a couple of other actors thought to potentially play him, not quite in the 2008 version, but earlier ones. So Tom Cruise was thought to play it, and also Nick Cage. So I think it would have been an entirely different type of movie if either of those people had played it.
I agree.
I could almost see Tom Cruise playing it, but it just wouldn't work, and Nick Cage would have sort of have chewed up the scenes a little bit and made them a bit they definitely went for the right pick there.
Yes.
The other kind of supporting actors you don't really see much more of. Jeff Bridges obviously is, I don't know if he died. Does he die at the end? Obadiah Stane?
I'm not sure. I'm
going to say yes. I think he falls into Arc Reactor or something.
Okay.
And so you don't see any of him. You see Rhodes again, Rhodey, but different actor. We can talk about that in a moment, I guess, once we get to Iron Man 2. Who else isn't? Nobody else really is. Oh, you get to meet Jarvis.
Jarvis, yes.
Jarvis. So Jarvis in the comic books was an actual butler.
Really?
But they didn't want to relate too much to Batman, and they wanted to maybe update it a little bit, so they've created this artificial intelligence. What do you think Jarvis stands for?
Okay, this isn't fair because I have it right here.
Okay, what is it? Tell us what Jarvis stands for.
Just a rather very intelligent system.
Yeah, which seems like really poorly thought about. They could have got something so much better than that. Like, I have no idea, but and that's played by Paul Bettany. Do you know who Paul Bettany is?
No.
Did you know him before this?
No.
I knew him from A Knight's Tale. So in A Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger, he's the guy who announces Heath Ledger as like the knight from wherever he's from.
Okay.
That's all I knew him from beforehand. I think he's been in a bunch of other stuff, but I think he does a really good job at Jarvis. But he apparently he did all his lines within like 2 hours in a booth.
Really?
He got paid a stupid amount of money for it. He says this is his job in the world he's done. He felt like he was robbing the MCU, which is quite funny. But I like that. Yeah.
Phil Coulson also had not a big part in this one, but a bigger part. Like they thought that he was going to have a tiny part, and then he became a big person in the cinematic universe.
Well, he similar to a lot of these actors, he was only signed on for the one role to begin with, like this one movie, and then following this, he signed on as he realised it was going to be bigger. But so who's he?
He is just in this movie, he's agent. Just a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent.
S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, yeah.
Yes.
Agent, you said Agent Coulson, didn't you? And what's S.H.I.E.L.D. then? Because this is the first movie S.H.I.E.L.D.'s introduced.
Yes.
And it's another thing, unless you read the comic books, you don't really know what S.H.I.E.L.D. is. But do we know now? What would you say if you had to describe S.H.I.E.L.D. to someone?
S.H.I.E.L.D. is The entity that governs all of the Avengers and later on the Inhumans.
Inhumans, yeah.
They're the silent people who protect us.
Yeah, it's like a government agency essentially, but not quite government. I think it's privatized somewhat. But Agent Coulson makes almost a running joke that he announces the whole name of S.H.I.E.L.D. Do you can remember what it is?
I can't remember.
No. So in the movies, they call it the Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division. Okay. And they keep making a joke of, you got a shot on that, something, oh yes, I know, we're working on it type thing. Which is silly, because the first thing you think of, especially if it's a government agency, you just think you'd use the first letter of each one and make it what have they called, initialism or abbreviation? Acronym, maybe? We spoke about this other week.
Yeah, I know, we're so bad at this.
I think it's acronym. We'll go acronym. So that pronounced S.H.I.E.L.D. But in the comic books, it wasn't called that, and it still isn't called that.
Really?
There was 2 or 3 other versions of it. Initially, it was called at one point it was called the Supreme Headquarters Intervention Espionage Law Enforcement Division, which I suppose would still work, but we wanted to maybe make it sound a bit more cool. And it was also called Strategic Hazard Intervention Espionage Logistics Division. A very similar one, but other bits and bobs from this movie we could talk about or mention. How many nods to other movies are there? Or do you remember any of the sort of other movies that are foreshadowed a little bit in this?
Not at all.
No?
Because I don't know if I've seen this one since seeing the other ones, and I don't know that I would put 2 and 2 together.
Okay, well I think one of the main ones is you see Captain America's shield.
Really?
So when I think it's when you're in his house and he's making something to do with art rack or whatever, you usually see Captain America's shield at one point. But it's suggested that it's not actually the shield, because the shield's given to Captain America some other way, obviously back. So, but there's a version of it anyway. I don't know how much more else.
How many pieces do you think make up Iron Man's suit?
Is this what in real life, or is this like movie lore?
I guess in the movie, like how many separate pieces make up the suit?
Let's say, is it a lot or is it little?
It's a lot.
1,016.
Not that many.
I have no idea. Are you counting as screws and bolts?
450.
Okay, that's quite
pieces,
a lot.
Yeah.
So is the colour, the red and gold, he gets off the hot rod car. That car's apparently owned by the director, interestingly enough. But I think in the comic books it was taken off something else. Can't remember what it was. I think initially it was all gold in the comic books, and then he added the red in.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it used to be an all gold version. I've got a bunch of other stuff that's like more based on natural production of the movie itself. Things like the mansion in Malibu is totally CGI, which is kind of interesting, I guess. The people that did all the CGI was Industrial Light and Magic, who did pretty much all the great movies of the last 30 years. They initially did Star Wars. I think they actually came to be during Star Wars, and then they've done things like Pirates of the Caribbean, Terminator 2, Back to the Future, Transformers, all that sort of stuff. It sold a shit ton of. I had this DVD and probably had 2 or 3 of them because we probably lost it and got another one or just got given a bunch of them. It sold over 9 million copies of the DVD, 4 million in the first week that it came out, which is a crazy amount of DVD sales. But that was back in the day. DVD was like, back in the early 2000s, I had so many DVDs. I just bought tons of them. Now you just get rid of them and have Netflix, but it kind of worked. There is a nice wee thing about when Obadiah Stane brings him pizza. Don't know if you remember that, before he sort of puts that sort of toxin into him. Do you remember? So there's a scene where Obadiah Stane comes and takes his arc reactor, and he brings him pizza from New York, and that pizza is actually a real place in New York, and Jon Favreau used it in Elf. Do you remember the movie Elf? Santa tells Elf to go to his pizza. Apparently it's the same one. Anyway. But yeah, that's before he takes arc reactor and leaves Tony for dead. That's when Tony crawls downstairs and gets the one that Pepper Potts made him in the wee glass jar and puts it back in.
Okay.
The villain that I mentioned earlier, Razel, he isn't a real comic book villain. Well, he is, but he's actually part of an alien race called the Starjammers. Okay. And that's where the name came from, but he's not actually part of the Ten Rings. It was just sort of create a villain, because originally they were going to use the Mandarin, but they thought that was too early. They wanted to build up to it, so that's why they sort of introduced the Ten Rings, sort of, but not really. One thing I like about movies, which is weird, they don't hear them much anymore, is taglines. Do you know what a tagline is to a movie?
No.
So a tagline is like, I'm trying to think of really famous ones. I totally can't. I've totally gone blank. But it'd be like Iron Man. Oh, I'll read some out actually. These are the ones for Iron Man. I don't know why I like taglines. I just do. But it'd be like Iron Man. Heroes aren't born, they're built. Or get ready for a different breed of heavy metal hero. So it's like the wee thing you'd hear at the end of a trailer or something. And I really like them for some reason. They're not as good as they used to be back in the days when it was like Jaws and E.T. and stuff like that. But I really like them. Alright, so the last thing you see when you watch Iron Man, and the thing that sort of really initializes the MCU, the end credit scene. What was it? Can you remember?
Yes. This one was Nick Fury visiting Stark. Nick Fury is the S.H.I.E.L.D. director. And he tells him that Iron Man's not the only superhero, and he wants to discuss the Avengers initiative.
Ooh, and how many comic book geeks were just jizzing in their pants when they saw that?
All of them.
All of them. Every single one of them.
Yep.
That was great introduction. I think it was risky, because if the movie flopped, then that would have been like the worst tease for everybody in the world. But I think it worked. That alone probably sold the movie enough to make other movies. Yeah. You know? Because I would have finished watching the movie, okay, that was cool, I don't have to see another one ever again. But that scene alone,
it draws you in.
It changed everything.
Yes.
Especially when you're aware of some other heroes.
Yeah, and you just want your favorite one to be there.
Yeah. So, timeline-wise, that doesn't fit in the same way, but the next movie, do you know how long after this one the next movie came out, or the next Marvel movie came out?
It was in 2008 too, right?
No, I think I went to 2009. Oh, I don't know. What was the next? I thought the next one was The Incredible Hulk.
Yeah.
Yeah, was that in 2008 as well?
I thought so.
Okay, cool. Excellent.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah, no, you're right. 2008. I just wasn't looking at the right place. So, The Incredible Hulk. Now, when this came out, you said you didn't see it at the cinema.
No, I don't remember seeing it.
Oh, wait, first off, Iron Man. Was that a good film?
I liked it. An 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10. Okay, I yeah, that'll do. Yeah, 8 out of 10, that'll do. Fine. I think it got about 8 out of 10 on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes and stuff. Even on Rotten Tomatoes, at 100. But yeah, go watch it if you haven't seen it. It's a great introduction.
Yes.
To the movie. So that came out in April of 2008.
Yes.
I believe, or April, May. Actually, I think it opened up in Australia. I think all these movies started opening up in Australia because Australia they open up on the same day, but Australia's obviously 12 hours ahead of where we are here. But and later that year, in June, I believe, that's when Incredible Hulk came out.
Yes.
Now, when I first saw these, I didn't relate them. I knew they were both Marvel movies, but I didn't think they were going to be part of the same universe. Okay. I thought Iron Man with Avengers, even though Hulk's part of it, because we'd had Hulk a couple of years earlier, the Ang Lee kind of version.
Yeah.
I didn't think this one was going to be very good, but I still went to see it. I remember me and my friends were like, okay, we'll go see it. We quite like the Hulk as a general character, more than Iron Man actually, prior to we went to see it. So what was the storyline of Hulk?
It introduced Bruce Banner as the Hulk. So Banner's exposed to gamma radiation from his name's I can't ever say it, Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. He was like a sergeant or something, and he was doing an experiment, and Banner's exposed to this gamma radiation, and it messes up his body, and now anytime his heart rate's over like 200 beats per minute, he transforms into Hulk.
Okay. And then what's the storyline? That's the Hulk, but what's the storyline of the movie? Can you remember?
I can try.
That's alright. I'll whip out and you can fill in as you remember.
Okay.
So I believe this is one. It sort of follows on from the Ang Lee Hulk from a couple of years prior, but not really, because it doesn't show you how it happened. It's not like this is him before and this is him after. It sort of just jumps straight into it. I think we start off with him in Brazil.
Yep, Rio de Janeiro.
Start in Brazil, where he's kind of hiding from the government after terrorizing it from, again, assuming the first Hulk movie was the one, and he's working in a bottling plant or whatever, and doing some weird form of breathing with his tummy, if you remember that scene or not.
He's doing yoga.
Oh, it's not yoga though. It's meant to be like Taekwondo or something. It's another martial art to help him keep his heart rate down. Okay. And then he's sort of and so that's where it starts, and then they have the sort of kind of, I think it's the most weirdly contruded scene to figure out the how they find them. Do you remember what happens? This is also we forgot to mention Iron Man. Stan Lee's appearance. What's Stan Lee's appearance in Iron Man?
I don't remember. I didn't know to look for him at that point.
Oh shit! What was his appearance in that one? Was that the one when he was mistaken on a red carpet, or was that number 2? There's one when he's mistaken for some guy that Americans knows, but I don't really know. Larry King. He's mistaken for Larry King on a carpet, but I don't know if that's number 2 or number 1.
So in Iron Man, Stan Lee's cameo is as a Hugh Hefner lookalike.
Okay, so that'll be on the red carpet prior to getting showed those pictures of that. Because remember, that's how he goes and like takes his suit for the fast flight all the countries, because that lady Christine gets chosen pictures of that village where his doctor friend was from.
Okay.
What it's called anyway. Okay, so that's where Stanley's in that one. Cool. All right, back to Hulk, because the Hulk. You said you didn't remember how he.
No, I do remember how they find him.
Yeah. So how did they find him?
So he like cuts his finger, and then somehow his blood like manages to like get in stuff, and then Stan Lee drinks this drink, and it has his blood in it, and he gets like gamma poisoning or something like that, and they trace it back to Brazil.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly it. Because I remember he's like, stop the system. He stops all the bottles from moving, and he wipes up a bit of blood, and then it pans away, and you see one bit of drop of blood in the one left bottle. But so that scene took a whole year of CGIing to get to complete. Yeah, which seems like a simple. Well, to us people who don't know anything about movies, it seemed like a simple scene, but that was one of the longest parts of the CGI of the whole movie, and that's with Hulk in it the whole time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that happens, and then you have General Ross, or Thaddeus Ross, sets up his sort of team to come in, capture Hulk, and that's when you have the fast introduction of Tim Roth character. I'm not even sure what his name was. Anyone remember?
Tim Roth?
He was the bad guy who ended up becoming the Abomination. It was a weird name. It was a weird name,
Emil Blonsky.
Yeah, there we go. It was a strange name because then he's meant to be British, or he was British in the movie. So then they come and they have a big runabout scene around Rio de Janeiro, which is okay. So one of the issues I have in this movie is that he runs about all this time and doesn't get turned into the Hulk until the very end, when they go back into the bottle factory, and then they end up shooting him or something, and that's when he hunts it. Oh no, because he doesn't want to get hungry. If you remember that scene, that was a bit of an eye-rolling movement. Do you remember that? Oh, so he was like, this was maybe prior to that. He was getting pushed by those couple of bullies, and then he's trying his Portuguese out, and he goes, you don't want to see me when I'm, that famous line, you wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Yeah.
So angry and hungry are very similar in Portuguese. So he says, you wouldn't like me when I'm hungry, and they go, what? Anyway. So yeah, he ends up turning to Hulk and has that big. That's quite a cool scene in the bottle plant, and then he jumps away and ends up in like Colombia or something. It's like the next morning he wakes up in the jungle and he's in a couple of countries over, and then that's when he starts making his way back to the US. The reason he was leaving was because he had been in communications with Mr. Blue about trying to test his blood and trying to get a cure. Yeah. So then he goes back to America, meets up with Liv Tyler in another pizza shop, surprisingly enough. She's got a new boyfriend who ends up telling on General Ross and her. They have that cool scene in the university where he's using, like, when he fast beats up Tim Roth, because Tim Roth's fast being injected by the serum, the super serum from Captain America. Even though it got lost, they tried to reformulise it. Yeah. Give it to Tim Roth. He becomes still human form, but stronger and faster. Still gets beaten hell up by Hulk when he kicks him against a tree. And he's like, douche, against a tree. Do you remember that scene? No. Anyway, that was cool. And then that's when he jumps off into the sort of cliff, I think. And it's thunder and lightning and raining. Do you remember that? And people always used to say, "Oh, Thor's falling down." But
and nonsense. She's down there too. Does she come?
Yeah, because he for some reason doesn't want to kill her.
Yeah.
And then what happens after that?
I don't remember what happened.
That's when he goes to the city and tries to go see Mr. Blue. Okay. So you get the half first because he needed some of the data from the computers at university. He took the data. Then he went to go see Mr. Blue. They strapped him down in the chair. They made him go Hulk, and then they made him go un-Hulk. And that was pretty much it there. Oh yeah, and then General Ross came and picked him up. Like, they stormed the place, took him out, and then they'd already released Abomination because Tim Roth had been given more serum after his break apart. He healed himself, and then they're like, "Oh, how are we gonna save us? Or what are we gonna do?" And he's like, "You know what you got to do," and then he kind of like falls out backwards out the helicopter, Ed Norton, and then he lands as the Hulk. Because apparently you get adrenaline rush when you're falling off a plane, and then you have that big fight, and the Hulk. Hulk doesn't kill Abomination; he just sort of maims him. He knocks him out because he chokes him with the chain at the end.
Oh
yeah. Remember that? Because I think they were going to use Abomination and like Avengers eventually, but they never did.
Okay.
So that's what I remember from The Incredible Hulk. I really enjoyed it. During that first year when I first saw Iron Man then Hulk, I preferred Hulk because I just prefer Hulk as a character at that point until you watch it on DVD a million times. And okay, Robert Downey Jr. rules. You need to say more stuff. I'm just going on about.
I don't think I saw Hulk until after I saw Avengers, or
oh wow, okay.
Until after I'd seen Hulk in other movies. I guess Avengers would have been the first one. So
they're just confused because of Ed Norton.
Yes. So I didn't realize that it was actually even in this universe because because the character was different. Yeah.
So this, as I said, this actually was quite a successful movie in this. Well, it was and it wasn't in the same right, as in it was made of 150 million more of a budget than Iron Man.
Really?
But it made half the amount of money. It made 263 million worldwide, which is actually less money made than the Ang Lee version. Like the previous one was made for less, and they made about the same amount of money as the Ang Lee version. Just it was received better. Ed Norton wrote some of the script for it. Well, the script was made by Zach Penn, and then Ed Norton changed it to suit things apparently. But,
how many words does Hulk speak?
Oh, I think, you know what? I think I know this because I think I know who says them. Because you tell me, was it 8? 6, damn. And who spoke them?
Do you know what they are?
I'm assuming it's Hulk Smash, Betty. I don't know what else.
Leave me alone.
Oh, leave me alone. I don't know who says that. Okay. Do you know who says them?
No.
So do you know who played the Hulk back in like the 70s?
Frigno?
Yeah, so Frigno.
He still says them?
Oh, he said them for this, yeah.
Really?
Well, there's a bunch of different Hulks that played Hulks in different variations at different times, and they've all sort of been part of this movie at some point. Like the old pizza guy, he played the voice in one of the cartoons, and there's someone else who played him as well.
That's cool.
There's quite a lot of Hulks in this movie. And Lou Ferrigno's in this movie. Do you remember what part he played?
No.
So when Ed Norton goes in to steal the information from the university, he's like the security guard he bribes with a pizza. Do you remember that? Yeah. Anyway, trying to think of much more information. Do you know what the tagline for this movie was?
Hulk Smash.
That'd be good actually. On June 13th, get ready to unleash the beast. That's kind of ambiguous. Yeah. This summer, our only hope is something incredible. This June, a hero shows his true colours. You'll like him when he's angry. That's a really bad one. I feel like these used to be so much better, but
maybe they get better as the movies get better.
Maybe they do. Or probably worse because everyone knows the movies that by then you don't need a tagline.
Yeah.
So, anything else you know about this movie?
No.
Guess another person who was considered for the Hulk was David Duchovny. Do you know who that is? Have you ever seen X-Files?
No.
Okay. Well, I don't know if it's Mulder or Scully, but the guy who believes he's David Duchovny. So he was thought of to be that character, which is a really odd choice. There's a picture of Captain America in this movie, in General Ross's office, because obviously he's doing the super soldier serum stuff. So I guess that makes sense.
Why did they not keep Norton as Hulk?
Well, it wasn't they didn't keep. I believe Ed Norton didn't want to do it. He didn't want to be sort of held down to a franchise. You know, he likes these strange movies. Because I like him as an actor, but I'm happy they changed him.
I like
when I first saw Mark Ruffalo, I was like,
I like him a lot.
But yeah, once you see him in the movies, actually, okay.
Yeah.
He does another really good movie with what's her face, Keira Knightley, and he's like a music producer. Can't remember what it's called. I think it's called like Begin Again. I can't remember. It's a really good movie. One of my friends who loved Incredible Hulk, who made me go watch this. He was the one that got me into that other movie as well. But anyway, if he listens, he might know who he is. So 2 other comic book movies came out this summer. Do you have any idea what they are? One of what's considered the best comic book movies of all time.
Dark Knight.
Yeah, The Dark Knight came out this summer as well,
yes.
as did Hellboy 2, The Golden Army. Don't know if you ever saw that.
I never saw Hellboy, but I saw Dark Knight.
Well, Hellboy I loved. I thought, this was a great year for comic book movies. Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Dark Knight, and Hellboy 2. Mm-hmm. It was a good year. 2008. Huh. Yeah. One more fact before we get on to the last scene. The whole movie was tinted in a shade of green, very similar to the Hulk, to give that sort of building to the Hulk kind of thing.
Really?
I always like that, those wee facts about movies. You'd never notice it as a person.
No.
Like, I remember listening to I won't even listen to the commentary, like editor's commentary, or producer's commentary, director's commentary once, and that was for a movie called Cabin Fever. Mm-hmm. You ever seen it? Mm-mm. So Cabin Fever is about a cabin in the woods where people go crazy because they drink the water, it's polluted or whatever. And apparently he spoke about how the contrast of the movie got darker and redder near the end, just to sort of build the tension. And I was like, okay, well, that's interesting, but this is a very similar thing.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of movies probably do something like that. But what did you like about how the Hulk looks in this movie? Because it looks very different to what he does now. Do you remember?
I don't really like his face.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's like taken off Ed Norton at all, does it?
Mm-mm.
I think it's entirely his own face. But he looks really ripped. I mean, he's got like 0% body fat, very bulky, very sort of, you see the striations in his muscles a lot. The green was a little bit too dark, I think, for my liking.
Yeah,
Not
I like
quite
current Hulk better.
Enough. Yeah, current Hulk is better. All right, so the bit that combines us to the rest of the movies. What was the scene at the end?
Post-credit scene was Stark approaching Ross about the team being put together.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, I think what he said is, something about you having a problem, or we have a problem that we can help you solve, or something like that, isn't that?
I don't know what he said exactly, but it's in a bar, I think, and tells him a team is being put together. So
Thunderbolt's in reload, and Tony Stark says, the smell of stale beer and defeat. You know, I hate to say I told you so, but the Super Soldier Project was put on ice for a reason. I bet sort of foreshadowing towards Captain America. I've always felt the hardware was much more reliable. And Ross goes Stark, and Tony goes General. Then have a wee bit of banter, blah blah blah. And then Tony says, I hear you have an unusual problem. Ross says, you should talk. And then Tony says, you should listen. What if I told you we're putting a team together? And then Thaddeus Ross goes, who's we? And then he looks silently at Ross. So that doesn't really suggest that they're going to help Hulk. It sort of implied, I always thought it implied that they're going to go against Hulk. The Avengers were going to have to sort of fight Hulk before recruiting him, which I was really hoping that would happen. Like they'd have to take on, because the Hulk's pretty much unbeatable as far as the Avengers go, who's in the team. But that never really happened. Yeah, so that was the post-credit scene. We don't see much more from Ross until Age of Ultron, I think. But it suggests that he's part of the universe. And that was a scene that's not actually a post-credit scene. So that's a scene directly at the end of the movie, prior to the credits. So the Incredible Hulk's only movie that's not got a post-credit scene or a middle credit scene, because that one's just filmed straight on. And that was a favour that Tony Stark did. Robert Downey Jr. Okay. It wasn't part of his contracts, you know how the rest of them he's got like all these movie videos and appearances. And I think this might be the last movie that Nick Fury doesn't appear in. I don't think, because he doesn't appear in this one.
Oh yeah, he doesn't appear in
I think this is the only one he doesn't appear in, at least from Phase 1. He won't be in Ragnarok when I thought it was coming up. But his name does appear. I think Nick Fury's name appears at some point. Yeah. Alright, Incredible Hulk done. 2008 done. How long do we have to wait until the next? 2010. 2010. So that's 2 years. That's a fair bit of time waiting nowadays. You know, if we had to wait 2 years for another Marvel movie now, yeah. And it seems crazy because that's already almost been 10 years since the first one came out.
Oh my god.
And this is only, oh my god, I'm going to be like a 40-year-old watching kids movies. It's going to be ridiculous, and I'm not going to stop because
we got to finish till the end.
There's no way in 10 years time I'm going to enjoy them less. I can't think because it's part of my growing up.
Yeah.
You know, it's become part of me.
Yeah.
It's awful. But so the next movie,
Iron Man 2.
yeah, which I thought was a strange move, considering they're clearly building a universe.
Yes.
What should we do? Let's repeat what we've done already. But I guess it worked so well, and they had a bit of time, so they went back to making Iron Man 2. So what's the storyline?
Alright, so this one, Stark discloses that he's Iron Man. So up until this point, they don't, like, not everybody, the world doesn't know that Tony Stark is Iron Man.
Was that he did at the end of the last movie, right? That was like the last line of the last movie. Was a press conference. No, because he's reading the newspaper and he's like, let's say the Daily Bugle or whatever, and it says Iron Man, blah blah, and he goes like, Iron Man, it's a good name, but it's actually a gold, titanium, nickel alloy, so it's not accurate or whatever, but I like the name. And then he goes out and he announces he's Iron Man. Okay. And that's the end of the movie. Okay. Cue Black Sabbath, blue credits.
Yeah. Okay. So this one was, I guess, like, picks right up after that. So he reinstitutes Stark Expo to continue Howard Stark, which was his father's legacy. In this one, the palladium, that's the element or whatever, core in his chest is starting to poison him, so he's becoming more reckless.
Interesting fact, apparently palladium, although it's a heavy metal, is low toxicity, so it probably wouldn't have caused that poison. You would have thought they would have chosen another material, but anyway, carry on.
So he starts becoming more reckless and just like, I don't know.
Is it reckless because of the fame, or because he's worried about what he's done in the past, or?
I think it's a little bit of everything, and he thinks he's gonna die. So.
Oh, yeah, that's probably a big push.
He appoints, so because of all this, because he thinks he's gonna die, he appoints Pepper Potts as his CEO of Stark Industries and hires Natalie Rushman as his assistant.
Rushman, yes.
He is like, I don't remember how all this plays out, but he's like in a car racing and Whiplash comes out and attacks him. And Whiplash is like connected, Whiplash's dad is connected to Howard Stark, and they were like enemies. Well, they were business partners, and then they were enemies. And it just all progresses from there.
Yeah, so I think it's at the Monaco Grand Prix when Whiplash comes out.
Yes.
And he has a sort of, it's very similar to the Arc Reactor type suit style that he uses, but it doesn't quite go into the details of what it is. But it's the big whips, and he does that cool scene where he whips the car right in half at one point. But I don't know where that, it does come from nowhere a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like we introduce a character for the sake of introducing a character.
Yes.
Which is a little bit strange, but he's not the only bad guy in it, because there's actually a guy who's brought Whiplash into it.
Yes, Justin Hammer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think in the comic books, the Hammer is a sort of rival partnership kind of thing to Stark Industries.
Okay.
So I think that's where that kind of comes from a little bit, but there is the sort of rivalry between Ivan Vanko.
Yeah. So they were business partners, and then, Vanko's father and Howard and Vanko's father were business partners, and then Vanko wanted to sell the reactor for profit, so Stark had him deported, and so now Vanko's son is Whiplash is avenging him. And Vanko and Justin Hammer team up to fight Iron Man, and that's really all I got.
So that's pretty much about right, because Hammer takes on Whiplash, and he wants Whiplash to build an army of drones, of robots similar to Iron Man.
Yes.
And then they end up going to the conference, and like Hammer brings out these drones, but they're not really drones. They end up just being
like suits.
Yeah, suits that can kill everyone. He wants to try and kill Tony, and it goes into a big fight, and that's kind of the end scene of that. It's relatively a straightforward movie in that sense. Wasn't the best received movie. I think it's probably one of the worst Marvel movies. Yeah. Like, it probably still did about, what I see actually. It did cost $200 million, and it made back $623 million, which is more money than the first one made. However, that's probably because it was a sequel more than because it was a good review. Because if someone said, "Hey, do you want to watch a Marvel movie?" that'd probably be bottom of my list.
Yes, mine too.
and that's not nothing. This movie's still good, but I don't think Mickey Rourke, who played Whiplash, was very good, and I didn't enjoy Hammer's Sam something or other. Sam Rock something. I didn't enjoy his performance either, and that sort of ruined it a little bit for me. It was a good way to build more of the universe, though, because as you mentioned, they introduced Natalie Rushman, who was actually...
It turns out to be Natasha Romanoff, who ends up being...
Black
Widow, who's my favorite.
Oh, your favorite, is it?
Yes.
And that's played by...
Scarlett Johansson,
yeah. That was an interesting way to introduce the character. But I guess they had to introduce somehow. They weren't going to do our own movie because she's a woman. And they don't do that for women. But it was...
I want her to have her own movie.
She may have... I doubt she will.
She's not going to.
She's never going to have her own movie.
But I want her to.
But even if they're doing Captain Marvel now, surely they could.
Yeah.
Because she's a woman and nobody really knows who she is, but everyone knows who Black Widow is.
Oh, why won't they do a Black Widow movie?
They just won't.
I know.
It's not, well, because nobody knows her villains. Like, who's... I don't even know.
I don't know. She's just a badass.
So they introduced Black Widow.
Yes.
I can't remember playing much of a role in the movie, but I'm sure she did.
I'm pretty sure
she had that. She had that fight scene down a corridor where she was kicking and flipping and hurricaning and like you know that move that you see in like lots of women do it. I don't know why women do it specifically. And where they go up and put their legs around people's heads and then they fall over essentially.
She does that one a lot.
But I've always wondered that move doesn't look like anything. Like surely you can't be holding tight enough that it does any damage, and even if they do, they just fall over. Like I never felt like unless you're breaking their neck while you do it, which often isn't. Or maybe. And they used to. I know they did it in like wrestling. It was called the Hurricanana or Hurricane. At least someone did. Like I don't know. It was just. I think it's like a Mexican wrestling move, but I can't see it being very effective. So much better probably just kicking them in the face. I would have thought.
Yeah, maybe she's not tall enough to reach their face.
Well, maybe she's tall enough to sit on her face.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah, I cannot remember what she did in that movie, but I'm sure she was introduced very well. It was one that you were like, it wasn't like a character adding any like, oh god, you know. I think she definitely added stuff to the movie. And it was maybe halfway through when we realised that she was, or Stark realised she was Black Widow and she was part of S.H.I.E.L.D. Because that's when they met Nick Fury at that donut place and they had a wee chat. Can't remember what the chat was about.
I don't remember.
I think Nick Fury was annoyed that Ironman became a bit of a nuisance and was causing problems.
Yeah. So they just decided to use him as a consultant, not as a part of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh, okay, I see. Because there's so much movie. Oh man, God, we could talk so much more about this movie. Because there's a bit when he got drunk and started like blowing up stuff at a party in his house, and then Iron Patriot had to come in, who was Don Cheadle at this time now, who was playing Rhodey, who had the War Machine outfit, but I think it was Iron Patriot at the time. It wasn't War Machine, so he didn't have the minigun and stuff on it.
Yeah.
And that came in.
And this is Rhodes, new actor.
Yeah. So that's what it was introduced at the beginning when had because the government was trying to get the technology from Stark, and Stark was sitting in the sort of courtroom, and then Rhodes walked in, and then he says, "Oh, Rhodey," and then introducing who the character was meant to be is like, "Oh, I'm here now. Yeah, to deal with it." So basically saying this is the actor who's playing it now, deal with the audience. Which it was done. Not subtly, but subtly enough that it kind of worked. And yeah, like worked quite well. But what happened at the end of the movie? So at the end of the movie, the War Machine came together and they both fought off all the drone robots. And what happened after that?
I'm not sure. They fight the drones.
We should have remembered. It was okay. It was a good sequel. It wasn't the best executed. I think they must have rushed it a little bit or something, because they only had 2 years to write a script, produce it, make sure the characters came back, and then get it out there. So it can't have been that. It wasn't put as much information or details into it as the first one anyway.
Yeah, I think after they fight the drones off, like, that basically is the end, and then that's when Fury and Stark meet, and he tells them, like, we're just going to use you as a consultant because you're difficult to work with, and then it moves into the post-credit scenes.
Oh, okay. So
what was
what was what? Sorry.
Stan Lee's?
What was Stan Lee's one in this?
This is another one.
This is another one who was. You thought he was Larry King.
Yes, this is the Larry King one.
So, is this again on the red carpet?
This one's just like a press conference looking type thing.
Oh, okay.
The other one, the Hugh Hefner one, was a press conference.
Ah, okay. No, red carpet. Hugh Hefner on red carpet.
Yeah, red carpet.
Hey, how you doing, Hugh?
Yes.
And that's only when he was actually playing Stan Lee, apparently. So he was playing himself in that one.
Okay.
And he was mistaken for Hugh Hefner.
Okay, yeah.
Whichever other one, he's not playing anything. And we can talk about Stan Lee maybe a little bit later on about how he's maybe come into the universe slightly differently now. But any other characters to introduce this one? Not really.
Happy Hogan's in this one more.
Yeah, he becomes a bit more of a sort of head of security, isn't it?
Yeah, like security guard.
And he has the greatest scene, one of the best features that all the sort of geeks loved was the suitcase suit. Did you remember that when they had the suitcase and at the Monaco Grand Prix, they needed, he needed to get his Ironman suit, so they gave him the suitcase and it folded out and he stepped in and it came around him. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah.
So that's the
the
famous suit of this one. But what I didn't like about this one is they changed the art reactor, because this was the one where he made his own element. And they made it. What was the element they made? I can't remember what the element was. Well, basically, the Howard Stark's Expo, the way the layout was designed was a atomic ringy circular electron thing for this new element, which Tony made in his house using that big kind of basically a small hadron collider type thing. And that's when he made his new element at the beginning of a V. And let's just call it Ironmandium, even though it's not called that. And he made that, but he made the triangle circle thing and like arc reactor, and I don't like that. I don't know if it's like in the comics or not, but I think that ruined it. I think the round is iconic, and to have a triangle, it just I was like, ugh. So the whole suit I didn't really care for just because of that one triangle, which kind of ruined everything in my eyes. But yeah, they made that, and then I think at this point he doesn't need it in there. Or is it in the next movie he doesn't need it?
That's what I was trying to figure out. Does he have the surgery in this movie?
I'm going to say yes, but I can't remember.
I think he does.
Yeah, because I think he doesn't want to be defined by that anymore. He wants to be his own man, and that's just not. He doesn't want to be part of him anymore. But Paul Bettany returns as Jarvis, which is good. I think he's signed on for a bunch more movies at this point. I think that's all the big characters, really. Any sort of interesting facts about this movie? I know that Emily Blunt was originally cast for Scarlett Johansson.
Really?
Yeah, so the English Emily Blunt. But she had to pull out due to taking part in Gulliver's Travels. Do you remember that Jack Black movie, Gulliver's Travels? I quite enjoyed it, even though it was an awful movie. Received really badly, I think. But I enjoyed that movie, which I think would have been a totally different... That would have been really weird. Imagine Emily Blunt as... I can't imagine it for some reason.
No.
It would have been strange.
Scarlett Johansson is Black Widow.
Other actresses that were considered: Jessica Alba, Angelina Jolie, the girl... Oh, what's her face? I can't read my writing, so I don't know what other people's names are. But the girl that played Faith in Buffy, she really wanted it.
Oh, Eliza Dunn.
Yeah, she wanted it at one point, but I think she was maybe a little bit old by then. I know it seems a bit weird, but because Buffy was way early.
Buffy was amazing.
It was amazing, and she also was an angel as well, I guess. But and that was Joss Whedon, so Joss Whedon would have known her and worked with her, and that would have worked for the Avengers and stuff. But maybe not at this point.
I loved Faith.
Yeah.
Yes.
So at this point, Robert Downey Jr. put on a bit of muscle for this because he had a couple more shirtless scenes in this one. So he put on about 20 pounds of muscle apparently.
Oh, wow.
Which I'm like, well, how do you do that? I wish I could get 20 pounds of muscle just for anything. Mickey Rourke was only paid $250,000 initially, so he was going to pull out, but then they paid him more money, which isn't much money for considering this movie made at $600 million.
Yeah.
The Whiplash, the character, isn't actually Ivan Vanko, so they've kind of used two characters, combined them together, and called them something else altogether, because this is actually a mixture of the Crimson Dynamo and Whiplash, and they've combined them together to create this version of Whiplash. So it's not entirely just a Whiplash. and the name on his jumpsuit is Boris Termagov, which is originally the Crimson Dynamo, I believe. So they've just again one of these things that for comic nerds, if you not know, otherwise you would know. This is the movie that Nick Fury signed on, or Samuel L. Jackson signed on for another 9, the biggest sort of contract in cinema history. He was absolutely cheesing because he's got such small roles, other than like the Winter Soldier, where he has an action scene. So easy for him, man. There was a low-key tattoo on Whiplash. Whiplash is covered in tattoos, remember that? And they're all picked out by Mickey Rourke, and they were sort of, he went to a Russian prison to get an idea of Russian people or Russian criminals, and they had a low-key tattoo on his neck, which they had to CGI out because they didn't want to confuse anyone with Thor that was coming out soon. So that was quite interesting. And the tech in this one, I don't know if you realise, like, you probably didn't notice in Iron Man 1, but the tech was relatively straightforward. It was almost realistic. Okay. So much so to the point that a lot of tech companies told the producers and stuff that that's all real. We're producing stuff that's like that now. So in this one, they've upped the tech to holograms and like, suitcase cases, all this sort of stuff to make it more futuristic or more sort of sci-fi, because by the time the movies came out, technology would maybe surpass some of these movies, so they made it a bit more advanced and crazy. This was named, you know how sometimes when they film movies they don't give it real names, they give it like a fake name so people don't know what it's about. This was called Rasputin, Murphy's Law, or The Adventures of Angus MacDonald, so people wouldn't know that it was Iron Man 2. Just fun fact.
What were the taglines for this one?
Taglines. Alright, can you guess what the tagline might be? There's no way.
No idea.
Oh, it's only one tagline I can find. It's not the armour that makes the hero, but the man inside. You probably could have guessed that. That's kind of lame. Ugh. I wish
These are very good.
No, honestly, I don't know why, but I honestly feel like I remember taglines used to be better for movies. Like back in maybe I'm just thinking like back in the 90s and 80s when you had to have a tagline, I guess, when you were just listening to it and not have YouTube selling things. But alright. We've done Stanley, we've done ideas, I guess. The rest, nothing else in this story really takes into the MCU other than the little bit with Romanoff and the post-credit scene. So what's the post-credit scene in this one?
Coulson reports the hammer is found at the bottom of a crater in New Mexico. Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun. So this was obviously introducing Thor. And I like that introduction. That was a really good one because everyone's waiting for Thor. They were coming out, and it was the first. It combined Agent Coulson, the SHIELD agent, with Thor, with Iron Man. So it was really making the universe come together. And we didn't really know much. I didn't know much about Thor really.
I didn't either.
And I think this was. I think it's quite interesting. A lot of the post-credit scenes are actually filmed by the directors of the other movies. Really? So, for example, the director of Thor, he directed that post-credit scene, and vice versa for the other ones. For many other ones, anyway. But you like that post-credit scene? Do you remember seeing it in cinemas, or did you see this on DVD as well?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I probably saw it in cinemas just because it was Iron Man. I only tend to go to the cinemas for those type of movies nowadays. Too. Just because I want to see it live, big action. But it was good. Overall, I would say this was not as good as Fast Iron Man. It was a bit of a letdown, but thank God Thor came out this year as well and made things better for me. Anyway. Which takes us on to Thor, I guess. Yeah. All right, Thor 2011. Oh, wait a minute. We didn't give our views. We didn't give our rates out of 10. Okay, Incredible Hulk out of 10, I guess. Incredible Hulk. Go see it. Don't go see it.
Go see it. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say go see it. Iron Man 2, go see it. Don't go see it.
I mean, if you are obsessed with the MCU and want to follow all of them, then yes. But if you don't really care, then
I think if you're a fan of Black Widow, it's a good way to introduce her a little bit. But you could probably jump this one altogether. Yes. Just watch post-credit scene, maybe, or a 5-minute synopsis of the whole movie. Yes. Read IMDb and then move on. Yep. Cool. Hello, listeners. Thank you for listening to this first part of our MCU Phase 1 podcast. This episode turned out to be a lot longer than we thought it would, so we're going to break it into 2 pieces. So please join us again next week with part 2 of the MCU Phase 1. Thank you. Bye.